everyone, Michelle here from Gardening TLC. How many of you are on Pinterest right now looking at all the winter porch pots that are out there and looking for ideas of how to put those together? Or you're looking at those and you're wondering, how do they make them look like that? Well, today we are going to have Porch Pot 101 class. We are going to be putting together a porch pot right here in this pot. I teach this class in my store and we probably make a couple hundred of them every single year. And I think that you can do it a lot of different ways, but this is the basics of how you put it together. So if you want to know, come with me today and you'll learn. Today, I'm going to make my pot in a paper mache. I do this because this is what we put ours in when we sell them. It's also what we use in class. We use the paper mache because this allows people to be able to take this home and drop it down inside of another pot. No matter what size it is, it pretty much fits unless it's smaller than the paper mache. You can easily add greens around the outside if your pot is wider, and you can easily elevate with bricks anything to lift it up if your pot is deep. A lot of times what people will do is they'll dig out the dirt and then sink this down inside, and then it sits there all winter. I also like that you can pull the birch out, pull the pine cones out, pull your berry out, and then pick this whole thing up and dump it in your compost pile at the end of the season. Super easy cleanup. Now, the goal with the paper mache pot or the pots that you're making up north, you want them to freeze. So we have filled this with sand because if I didn't give it some weight, it would just fall over and blow away if they tried to put it out just like this, or even if I had them outside for sale, they'd be blowing all over the place. So we put sand to about right here, and then that sand is barely damp. Now, even though I'm using fresh greens that are cut, these are still living greens and they still have the ability to drink. I want them to freeze in the pot, but it's not freezing yet. And so there's going to be 2 or 3 weeks where this is going to be outside and we're still in the 40s. We're, into the 30s at night, but I don't think anything's doing a hard freeze yet. So we want these to stay as fresh as possible for as long as possible. Now, if you're going to forage out of your own yard, one of the things that I have found, especially in the north, is I wait until after a couple hard frosts. And what that means is that you've got a couple nights where the temperatures dropped to 28 degrees or below. And what that does is it triggers that pine tree or that fir tree or whatever you're foraging off to go into dormancy and to go to sleep. And that way, the needles won't all fall off when you pick it. At least that's what I find. I find that anytime I get in a hurry and I go out there and I start cutting greens before I've had a couple hard frosts, I'll have the needles shedding all over the place because they didn't set. And if you wait, just wait for that hard frost, they'll set and they won't fall all over the place. There are a lot of different ways that you can get your greens. You can forage in your own yard. You can go to a box store, a garden center, a nursery. Sometimes florists will have them. Or if you have a lot of pots to fill, you can buy a Christmas tree and strip it down. That's probably the cheapest way to get a lot of greens. Another good way to get greens, and a lot of times you can get them for free, is if you go to the tree lots or even the box stores and you ask them for the bottom limbs that they cut off the trees, they'll give them to you for free. We give ours away, so why not? Just ask. All they can do is say no. Fraser fir is my preferred go-to green for 75% of what I put in this pot. It's got serious staying power. It stays green a long time. I'll put these in my pots, and I'll tell you, in April, my pots with the Fraser fir will still be green. Now, you can do these right into the dirt of your own pot. You don't have to use a paper mache. When I do my pots at home, I have a couple that I drop the paper maches in, but then I have some bigger pots where I just do it right into the dirt. The biggest thing, you want to make sure you do it before your pots freeze so that you can actually get your stems into the soil. Along with all the greens that I'm going to put in this pot, I'm also going to be putting in pine cones, some red twig dogwood, a really pretty bow, and 2 pieces of birch. We are going to make what I call a classic porch pot, and this is one that you're going to see like 3/4 of the pot because you've pushed it up against the garage or you've got it up next to your door. So you're really only seeing this part of it. So it kind of has a flat back and then 3/4 of it look good. I would say the majority of the pots that I see out there, this is the style that people need. Now, we will do another pot later where it's all the way around, so stay tuned for that. But this is the basics of it. So first you're going to gather some greens. You can just use one type of green if you want. I personally have a love affair with greens and I want more texture. and more variety in my greens so that the pot looks really cool. I always start with the back of my pot, and so I'm going to be putting some Fraser fir in the back of the pot. And the one thing you don't want to do is take a big branch like this and shove that thing down in your pot. One, it's going to wiggle all over the place. It's going to make a really big hole in the sand or your dirt, and you've got some time before it's freezing outside. So what I'm going to do is, if you turn this branch around backwards, you can see all the joints. I'm actually going to break this branch down and make it smaller. Once I've made it smaller, then I will put it in the pot. This is pretty much all that's left after I broke it down, and I ended up with some longer, fatter pieces, but I also ended up with some smaller pieces as well. I'll save the smaller pieces for the front and or other projects that I'm doing. One of the tips that I'll tell you that you need to do to have your greens last longer is anytime you forage or you're buying them at a box store or wherever you're getting them, give them a fresh cut. This fresh cut is going to help them drain a little bit longer. Now remember, my sand is a little bit damp. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to put some greens, and I'm looking for some of my taller greens. I'm just doing the very back of the pot. Let me turn that. All right. So I might put in maybe 3 greens. Yep. And I'm going to be doing this backwards. So hopefully I don't make it all cockeyed looking. Okay. All right. So there you go. I got 3 greens in the back there. Let me back the camera up a little bit so it gets all of it. So I've done the back of the pot. Then what I want to do is I kind of want to make my pot a little bit wider. Now, if you have a skinny area, then you're going to take your branches and you're going to put them in more straight up and down. If you have a wider pot, then you want to put them more at an angle like this. And see how much wider it made the pot just by doing that? So there's things that you can do, little tricks that will help you get the most out of the greens that you have. So sometimes the angle makes a difference. Okay, so these I'm going to put out, and I want them to go a little further out to the side. All right, so now that I've got my sides kind of equal, now I want to put my birch in. I always put my birch in here in the center of the pot. That way it's got other things around it to help stabilize it. I went and got a little stool to stand on so I can do this part, because this is higher than I am. All right, so I've got 2 pieces of birch. This one here is about 3 feet long. I buy them like this and they have a little pencil point in them. And then this one is 2 feet long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to like go into the center of the pot, and I'm going to put this in the center, and I can either make it go straight up and down, or I can bend it to the left, I can bend it to the right, whatever it is that you want to do. But if you're going to put the birch in and you're going to put it in your dirt, you kind of want to get your pieces a little bit longer than you want them sticking out. That way you have the ability to bury them down in your dirt. So if you're burying them in dirt, get your little trowel out and dig a little hole, and then get them in there, and then pack that dirt around them and tamp it in so this is in there nice and firm. So I'm going to put mine in and turn it just a little bit to the right. All right, and I'm going to seed it down inside that sand. A little bit easier to seed it in the sand. All right, then I'm going to take my next piece. I'm also going to start it in the center, but I'm going to lean it the other way and push it in there. And so now I kind of have a V going on. This piece is taller, this piece is shorter. So I like that look. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take Fraser fir and I'm going to fill it in around and come forward. Now, the one thing that you want to do when you're making a pot like this is you don't want to make anything taller than your birch as you move forward, because then you're just covering up all your birch and you can't see it. So why'd you put it in? All right. So I might put pieces in, you know, like this, and have them come out to the side like this. But as I come forward, I want these pieces to get smaller. I don't want them to be really big pieces. That's why I liked all of those smaller pieces. Now, the one thing I'm going to do as well is I'm not packing this in solid. Now, if you're only using one kind of green, yeah, you want to fill it in solid so that you can't see the dirt or the sand or whatever medium that you're using to fill this in, okay? So I don't want to fill in every little gap, because guess what? I have other greens that I want to put in here, and I want to be able to blend them in. Okay, so as you can see, I've pretty much filled my whole pot from the back to the front. I like how everything is looking. I don't like this one little branch right there. So I'm actually just I'm gonna clip it right out, okay? So for me, I always tell everybody that comes to a class, this is not, you have to be an artsy-fartsy person. You don't. This is visual. You just stand back and look at it. How does it look? Does it look balanced? Do you feel like you have a hole? Does it need something? That's when you start adding things. All right, so I'm gonna reposition this and get in front of it so I can show you kind of how I blend the other greens in. Now that I have my Fraser fir in, now I wanna start blending some other greens in. I also wanna create some height across the back. So I like to use Douglas. Douglas is soft, it's a lighter green, see it's got a nice contrast, and it's a little more sparse. And so you'll find longer branches when you buy Douglas. And so what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll come to the top of a joint, probably 2/3 of the way down, and I'll give it a cut. Now that I've got some branches broke down with the Douglas, I'm gonna fan that through. Now the one thing you don't do is just shove any kind of other green into the back of the pot. So back here, this is the back of my pot. This is Fraser fir, and I want it to stay Fraser fir. It's the back. I don't want it to look like an afterthought that I shove things in the back. What I want to do is weave things in between, behind the birch, but weave it through and fan it out. So let's do that. I'm going to take the longer pieces that I cut. All right, see how I just kind of fanned it right back there? There's only 3 pieces. And then what do I do with these little short pieces here? Well, if I got a little stub like this, I'm gonna cut that stub out, okay? And then I'm just gonna have this nice pretty side branch. And then I'm gonna blend that in the front. And then I'm gonna take this one here, and I'm just gonna work it right in, and I'm not gonna waste any of that. And so what that does is it helps like pull it forward through the pot. So that's a blending technique that works really well with any kind of green. And then again, just stand back and look at it. Does it look balanced? Is it blended through? Do you like the fan that you created? Are there any wonky pieces sticking out? Like, I don't like this piece sticking out. So I might pull it out, and if I put it back at a different angle, I'll probably like it even better. There we go. I basically just turned it around. A lot of times when you put a stem in and it looks funky, usually it's because it's too long. And so never trim the top of your stem. You take off all the prettiness. Take it out, trim the bottom, and put it back in. Another green I really like is cedar. Now this one is Leyland cedar, and I like the Porch Rd as well. This year my Porch Rd is a little short, so I'm going to use that as a cascading effect in other pots, and I'm going to use the Leyland as a green to give me some height. Now a lot of times when you buy these, see how they arc a little bit and they want to go that way or they want to go the other way? When you put them in the pot, let them naturally drape the way they want. But the one thing I don't want is I don't want them draping forward. So a lot of times that goes right to what I talked about, was cutting that stem so that they aren't all leaning the wrong way. So I might cut a good, 6 or 8 inches off of this one. Well, maybe not that much, maybe 3. Okay, so we'll cut 3 off of this one, and we'll cut 3 off of this one. Now when I put it in here, there we go. See how it gave me some height? Yeah, it's starting to come together. I ended up pulling it out and moving it back here. I liked it better back there. I felt like here I want to have a different green there that will give me a little bit of focal. So here is my nice blend of greens. And if you look, we've got the lighter green, the darker green. We've got the beautiful swaggy green from the cedar. Now we're going to put in a Carolina sapphire, which, I love this green. It's so awesome. Let me go get it. This is Carolina sapphire. I know I sound like a mad woman, but I love this green. Now, the one thing I'm not going to do is just shove this whole thing in the middle and have a blob of it. So what I like to do is, you don't need a lot of it. This is an accent green. I will come through, and again, I will find a joint and I'm going to cut it. Let's see if I can cut it without dropping it this time. All right, and that's going to give me 2 pieces. So now I have 2 pretty pieces. And I want, see all those beautiful berries on there? I am going to put that thing right in here, right in the middle of my pot, right in between. Yeah, my birch, isn't that beautiful? And then I'm going to use this piece, and I'm actually going to break it down just a little bit more. I'm going to break this piece in half. Okay, so now I've got 2 more pieces, and I'm going to take one piece and blend it in over here and the other one on the other side. All right, see, you can see how they're all blended together with the different colors. Oh my goodness, I just think that this is gorgeous when you can blend all those beautiful greens together. All right, we are going to add 2 more greens. I know that's obsessive, but this is what you do in my class. You add this many greens to your pot. The next green that I'm going to use is the one that I tell everybody, okay, everybody stop. Stand back and look at your pot and tell me, do you think it's balanced? Do you have a hole? Do you need some height someplace? So if I stand back and I look at my pot, I feel like I need a little bit of height right here, and I feel like I need a little bit right there. So, Princess Pine, and I bring in the tips because I think the tips are awesome. Okay, so again, fresh cut. Make sure everything you put in there gets a little cut. Okay, and then I've got some shorter pieces to blend in too. All right, so I feel like I need a piece right here. See how it wants to go that way? Let it go that way. Don't try to force it to go opposite that and look unnatural. How awesome is that? All right, there's one. And again, a little blending going on. I need a piece right there. Do I like that piece? I do. So we're going to give it a little cut. This pot's a lot higher and taller than I am. Okay. Remember, nothing in the back. If I turn this around, see, I didn't shove anything in the back. Everything is blended. It looks pretty good just like this, and you certainly don't have to put this many greens in. I'm actually going to add another one. This is Oregonia. Look at this. It's variegated. Stop moving. It's variegated and it's gorgeous. And when you put it in here, it just pops. And so I usually give everybody one piece. And typically what I tell people to do is you kind of want it in the center or off to the sides or in the front. That way it really shows up. And again, I'm going to go halfway down. I'm going to break it. See, look, I got 2 big pieces. And if I take this one and I break it down again, and I always look at when I cut it, what's going to be left. Maybe I don't want to break it down again. So let's get it in and we'll see if we need any more. So I'm going to put mine right here. And right here. Oh, isn't that nice? Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at all of the texture and the colors in that. Oh my goodness. That Oregonia just pops in there. And then look at that. That beautiful Carolina sapphire. I love the different greens in here. And it's nice and full. I think it looks balanced. And again, see if you just stand back and look at it. Does it look balanced? And if it doesn't, put something there. But we're not done yet. Now we got to add in a little nature. Okay, so I got some red twig dogwood. These I harvested from my house. And I harvested them all the way to the bottom because it was time to cut them back. And again, here's the thing. We don't want it way up here so that when someone comes over to your house, they poke their eyeball out, okay? You want it proportionate to what's already going on. So what I'm gonna do is you can hold it up to kind of see where you need to cut it. I actually need to cut it like way up here, and I don't want them to be the same height, so I might make the next one a little bit longer. But then look what I'm left with. I'm left with these, but I can use those too, okay? All right, so I have these little stems too. Now, one of the things that I like to do when I have the stems like this is I will give them a 45-degree cut like this. So that way when I turn it, I can't see the cut. See, because it's 45. And if I put it in like this, you won't be able to see it. And this one, there we go. All right. So I'm going to take this one, kind of bring it a little bit more to the front, and I'm going to mimic the direction of the birch. This one here, bring it in. That, and then I'm going to add my 2 pieces. I think I have to crawl behind it. Hold on. Oh my. I have to climb on the table. There's one. And There's one. All right, there's our birch or our dogwood. Next, we're going to put in 3 pine cones, but as you can see, I have them on dowel rods. You can pretty much put anything on a dowel rod if you can put a wire on it. So come with me right now and I'll show you how to do it. To wire a pine cone, you need a dowel rod. I like to use these so that the pine cones are secure in my pot. And then you need a piece of wire. So whether you use single wire or you're cutting it off your paddle wire, either one works. I like 22 gauge, it's easy to work with. All right, so I'm gonna go to the bottom of my pine cone and see how the pine cone is open right here. Now, if your pine cone is wet, you're gonna need it to dry. Once it's dry, the pine cone will open again, okay? So once that happens, you can find the center of your wire. So like that, find the center and then find the opening in the bottom of your pine cone and then just take the center of that wire and put it right in there, just like that, okay? See how I have 2 tails like here coming out either end? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold those through the wire until they come out the other side, okay? And then you might have to give it a little tug. Your goal is that you want these wires to be the same length once you get them to the other side. So see how it's in there? You can't even see the wire, okay? And then what I do is I just, like a bread tie, I just give it a twirl and I'm like just tying that on there. So if I spin it around like this, it doesn't go flying. All right, now the next thing I want to do is I want to put this wire on this dowel rod. So the goal is that I have the wire traveling up the dowel rod. I don't want it all in one spot like a spring because it'll come right off. I want it tightly all the way up. And then when I'm done, I want the pine cone at the top of the stick. This is going to allow me to maneuver the pine cone in different directions. See, I don't want a big stub sticking out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the ends of the wire down here and I'm gonna go about 1/3 of the way down the dowel rod and I'm going to hold that on there with my forefinger and my thumb and I'm gonna grab the pine cone. Now I twirl the stick, but you can twirl the pine cone if you want. It doesn't really matter. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna travel up the stick with the wire. See how that's all the way up the stick? It's not all coiled in one spot. Turn it straight up and down and then see how you've got this nub right here? You only want that to be maybe 1/8 of an inch. So you can always twirl the dowel rod like that to make that little nub shorter. And then you just give it a nice tight. See, did you hear that crack? See, now it's nice and tight and it stands up like a lollipop. But if I put it in my pot, see, I can't see a stick sticking out anywhere. Also, because it's at the top, I can maneuver it left, I can maneuver it right, I can turn it upside down, or I can have it straight up and down. So that is how you wire a pine cone. Now that you know how to do it, let's put them in. Now you can do a lot of different things. Remember how I showed you how you can manipulate the cone and move it around? The one thing you want to do when you put it in is you want to make sure that the dowel rod is to the back and the pine cone's in the front. So you kind of have to decide where you want it to go. Now I'm going to be putting a bow right here. So I think I'm going to nestle mine, maybe 2 over here and 1 over there. So let's see what it looks like. So when I put them in, I grab the pine cone and I put my finger on the top of the dowel rod right here and I push it in that way. That way I don't pull the pine cone or the wire off the dowel rod. 1. So you could do a little cluster like that, or you could put 2 in 1. You could even, let me take one back out. Okay, you could always turn it upside down too. So I could always put it like this too. There you go. So I could put it upside down if I wanted to. And then I'm going to grab my dowel rod right back here and I'm going to shove it in the pot. That way the bow doesn't come off. Oh, and don't do what I just did. Turn your bow the right way and make sure your tails are down at the bottom. And then if you end up smashing it a little bit, you can always fluff it out. I like to use ribbon that has wire on the edges. See, and now my pine cone is over here. You will notice that my pine cones sit like they're right around that bow. They're not floating in the pot. They look like they're nestled in the pot. So the one thing you don't want to do is shove them in the pot so that they're too far in there. And you don't want them to look like they're floating. They want to be nestled. Yeah, that's how you do that. And last, we're going to be putting in a berry pick. Now, I don't like to use those foam berries because you're lucky in the north if you get a season out of them. They freeze and then they separate and they crack and then you start to see the white foam underneath. I use a hard plastic berry if I'm going to use a faux berry. The one thing I recommend, open your berry up though and get the most use out of it that you can. Don't leave it all straight up and down, okay? So now I'm going to put my berries in and I want to be able to see them. So I'm going to put one over here. My pot's getting really full. One there. I got another one right here, and I'm going to put this one in the center. If I want it to be way up here, that's not in the dirt. It's just kind of floating in there. And if I have a windstorm, this will be gone. So I'm going to add a dowel rod to it. Same thing, just put a dowel rod on the stem. I'm going to go about, I don't know, halfway up. And then I'm going to take the end of my wire, and then I'm just going to wrap it all the way down and then all the way back up, nice and tight. Just like that. See, now I can put this down inside of there. It'll freeze in the pot and it's not going anywhere. Ah, see, isn't that nice? And number 3. So there it is in all its glory. I think it turned out really nice. It looks really balanced. I love all the textures and the colors. I think the red berries in there totally finished it off. I like the bow and the berries in the bow that make it all kind of match. Isn't that great? So now I could take this home. This is what you would make in one of my classes. But you would take this home and you could drop this down inside of one of your own pots. Now, me, I'm taking this to the TV station tomorrow because I'll be promoting the classes that we have in the store. That's why I had to get this made. But I think this looks pretty awesome. What do you guys think? So there you go, you guys. You could go and make your own pot now. You can forage by, do whatever you want to get your greens. I really do think that if you have more than one kind of green, it looks so much better. I think you need at least 3 to kind of get that look. Yes, I am a maniac and I use a lot of greens, but I love them and I have the ability to do that. But I didn't use a lot of the other ones, just a little bit. But isn't it great the way you can create all those textures and layers just by visually looking at your pot, cutting your stems, giving them fresh cuts, and layering it through. Stand back, look at it. What do you see? I mean, I think this turned out pretty good. All right, so hopefully this helps you be able to go out and create your own pot. Happy foraging or happy shopping if you're going to go get it, and happy pot making. That's all I've got for today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Michelle, and we'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.